Full card predictions for UFC 316. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. At the top of the card, Merab defends his title for the second time in a rematch. The Sugar Show's running a rerun against the Machine this week. First fight between these two, clear 3-2 Merab. I thought that Sean O'Malley obviously won the 5th round. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. And I thought Sean O'Malley should have won the 3rd round. And I sat through that snooze fest more than once, and I'm pretty confident that it should have been 3 rounds to 2 for Merab. But Merab did what he always does, right? He fights at a really high pace, tons of takedown attempts. He's just very urgent as well. You see when he gets to the clinch, it doesn't seem like he's taking a whole lot of time to set things up. He's just going for it. And I think that leads to a lot of success. Guys don't have time to settle in a position. He doesn't let them. And he outworks guys over and over and over again. And I think that's what makes him the toughest fight in the division, maybe even the toughest fight in the world because of his style. Now, while I think he's the toughest fight out there for really anybody, I don't think a lot of people would argue that, but he's far from the most dangerous fight out there, and that is obvious. Because you know how some fight fans give a lot of fighters flack if they're not going out there and finishing fights, like Bilal Muhammad, for example. You look at Merab, he's got one of the lowest finish rates in the UFC, just 8%, just one finish. The man couldn't finish a season of Peaky Blinders, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we see Sean O'Malley win the rematch. And I know some of you might be thinking, Kunith, how can you think Sean O'Malley's going to win the rematch with the way that the first fight looked? When you watch the first fight, Sean O'Malley came out very flat. Didn't look himself at all, still went the full 25 minutes as most do against this cardio monster, and ended up winning the 5th round when you would think that is going to be Sean O'Malley's worst round with the way that Merab puts a pace on guys. So I would assume that the former champion's going to pull a lot of confidence from that fight because he didn't fight at his best. He still won the most important round, and he disclosed that he wasn't 100% going into that fight, something like a hip injury, if I was reading it correctly. And we know that Sean O'Malley's the better striker. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. It's been 9 months since that last fight, and I'm sure he and his team knew. They probably got the tip from the UFC like, hey, if this fight doesn't go Umar's way next time out, we'll probably give you the rematch. So I think he's been in the lab since then preparing for another fight against Merab or a fight against a wrestler like Umar Nurmagomedov. So I expect him to come into this physically a lot better. I expect his takedown defense to hold up a bit better, even though later in the fight it started to look pretty good. What killed him was leaving opportunities for Merab to change levels, get in deep on his hips, cut an angle, and finish a takedown. And that normally came off of a big right hand that Sean O'Malley was throwing, but when he was throwing to the body, he was having a lot of success. When he was throwing kicks to the body, he was having even more success. And normally against a wrestler, you don't want to throw too many kicks because they can catch that kick, bring you down to the mat, but he did a really good job of pulling his leg out of there, so he wasn't getting taken down because of the kicks. So I do think that he's going to fight a bit of a better game plan. I think he's going to throw a bit more. I think he's going to have a lower stance, work that body more because of how effective it was in the first fight, and just not overextend on things too much. And normally I don't really care about non-fight talk. It's not my thing. But it's been impossible to not hear the noise on like Twitter and stuff where people are saying Sean O'Malley's not hitting the peace pipe, he's not bopping his baloney, whatever the case. I think that just speaks to maturation. The guy's just turning 30 years old, suffered what he considers his first real loss, lost the belt, had another baby. I think we're seeing Sean O'Malley 2.0 this week. And not only do I expect better takedown defense this week, I expect a more aggressive, more urgent get-up game from Sean O'Malley, because in that first fight, you see he gets taken down, goes to closed guard. You're not going to do anything there, and you're definitely not going to sweep Merab. No shot. But if you're willing to give up your back to get back up to your feet, I think that's wise, because Merab's not going to choke you. It's just the threat's not there. So you might as well give up your back, get back up to your knee, get onto your feet, and then start to work it back into him to create some space. And I think we see a lot of that this week. Even against Umar Nurmagomedov, we saw Merab beat him down. He took the 3rd, 4th, 5th round from him easily. But in those first 2 rounds before Umar started to gas, you saw Merab having trouble, right? So he's getting over on guys because they're struggling with his wrestling and or they're getting tired. But O'Malley didn't seem super tired despite not being 100% last time out. I think he comes back better. I think he puts the pieces together. Now, do I think he knocks out the champion? I don't see that happening. I don't think that he knocks him out, one, because Merab is in such great shape. We've seen him stunned before, but I don't think he gets knocked out here because he's in great shape, and because I don't think Sean O'Malley's really going to sit down on much. I think to beat Merab, unfortunately, you have to outpoint him, which is super hard to do if you start to fatigue, because he won't. But I think Sean O'Malley has the cardio and the right game plan to come out here, touch him up, move, defend takedowns, and repeat that process for 5 rounds, produce bigger moments on the feet, and as a result, end up winning the fight. So I think the Sugar Show gets his belt back this week. Give me Sean O'Malley by decision. The other bantamweight gold on the line in the co-main event spot, I tell you, I would love to pick Juliana Pena to defend her title this week because of the odds. I think she has the edge in cardio. She's as scrappy as they come. We picked her to beat Rocky Pennington last time out, and it worked, although some people thought that she probably should have lost that fight. She talks the talk. Like, I think Juliana Pena is a solid champion, but Kayla Harrison's going to overwhelm her with her physicality, her athleticism. We saw Ketlen Vieira last week just muscle Macy Chiasson whenever Macy decided to try to take her to the mat. And I know Ketlen Vieira pulled a dirty stunt before that fight and decided, she pulled a Paulo Costa, like, nah, we're gonna have a weight class up, why not? But the commentary team couldn't stop talking about the physical strength of Ketlen Vieira. She's so strong, she bullies women, whatever. You look at that fight against Kayla Harrison, Vieira had nothing for her. She landed one strike of consequence through the whole 15 minutes. We saw Kayla Harrison walk through Holly Holm as well, just big dogged her. So I think that she's going to be able to do the same thing against Juliana Pena here. The only path I see for Pena would be to survive the first 3 rounds, and that first 3 rounds be fought at a frantic pace. Then Kayla Harrison starts to taper off in the 4th and 5th, and that's where Juliana Pena comes alive and beats her and just gets her with sheer volume, effort, and drowns her, and maybe submits her late because she's able to take her back. But I don't think that is the most likely outcome here. I think the most likely outcome here is that Kayla Harrison fulfills the prophecy. She comes in and does what she came here to do, which is fight for the belt, fight Amanda Nunes. The only difference is she's going to be wearing the belt by the time her and Amanda Nunes fight. So give me the challenger to get it done here. I think that she finds a way to Juliana Pena's neck, gets that guillotine on her, too hard, too tight, or she submits her with an armbar. I could see that as well. But give me Kayla Harrison to win this fight by submission and new, double and new. And real quick, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. Next, we're looking at a fight with Kelvin Gastelum. He's fighting Joe Pyfer. We've talked about this fight before. Normally I would just take that footage, put it right here, but that was at the Noche UFC, or UFC Mexico City, excuse me. And a lot was being made about elevation. Will Joe Pyfer have the gas tank to go 3 rounds? And it just didn't fit in this video, so I wasn't going to do that for you, but I will say the pick is still Joe Pyfer. Bigger, longer, younger, more athletic, faster, hits harder. I think he's better than Kelvin Gastelum everywhere, and I would not be surprised to see him come out here and submit Kelvin Gastelum with like an arm triangle or something like that. We know that KG's got legendary durability. We know that Joe Pyfer's got big power and he's going to test that durability. But I really wouldn't be surprised to see Joe Pyfer just kind of back him up, change levels, take him down, and just get on top of him and work that jiu-jitsu game. Fights out of a good gym, fights out of a gym with great grapplers. I could see him putting that on display this week. He's got all the skills to win this fight standing, but he can really make a statement by coming out here and submitting Kelvin Gastelum versus just kind of outpointing him for 15 minutes. But either way, I think Joe Pyfer wins. Submission would not surprise me. I think the line for that's going to be pretty nice. And this card is full of favorites. We're going to talk more about this shortly. Joe Pyfer being one of the smaller big favorites on the card, should get it done this week. Give me Joe inside the distance. Next, we have Pat Mix, shout out Western New York. He is making his UFC debut against Mario Bautista this week. When this fight was announced, I saw the odds open at Mix. It was basically a pick'em. He was like -110 or something. I called that best line of the year. It's since swelled to about -180. It's going to keep moving. By fight time, you're probably looking at -250 by the time the public catches wind of this slaughter that is to take place. So get in while you still can, and even if you feel like you're losing value, you could just parlay him up or take him by submission, because this is a layup for Pat Mix in his UFC debut. And it's not because Mario Bautista is bad. The dude's talented, on a long winning streak, fights out of a good gym, has had some big moments in the UFC. I know that he's kind of public enemy #1 because of how he fought against Jose Aldo, just kind of holding him up against the fence, same way Merab did, mind you. So if Bautista ever goes to Rio, somebody's probably going to slip some cyanide in his acai, so I'd be very careful about your travel plans, Mario. But at the end of the day, he's a damn good fighter. Somebody who's been a mainstay in the UFC bantamweight division for a couple of years now. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't matter if he's a good fighter, because across from him is a great fighter. Probably top 3 in the world as far as fighters to have not competed in the UFC, and some say he might just be the best bantamweight. period. He's been the only reason to tune into some of these Bellator cards over the years, because not only does he win, but he finishes guys. Some of the best guillotines in the game, physically maxed out for 135 pounds as well. As tall as Sean O'Malley, just a little bit longer, filled out as well. The dude's a beast for this division. And he's a grappler, but his striking has gotten better over the years, and while he hasn't been in the UFC, he's faced some great competition. You look at guys like Magomedov, he beats a lot of 35ers. And I thought that Magomedov probably won in the rematch, and that didn't go his way, but hey, whatever. But he's fought former champions over in Bellator as well. Nobody can forget when he knocked out Rafion Stotts with that knee up the middle. I think that Patchy Mix ends up fighting for the belt sooner rather than later. He's right in his fighting prime, and Mario Bautista is just big enough of a name to be an appropriate kind of stepping stone to get him to those top 5 types of fighters, and I think he wins by submission here. We've seen lesser grapplers like friend of the show Ricky Simone, Damon Blackshear get Bautista down. I think Pat Mix can do the same thing here. Plus, if Bautista tries to change levels, he's getting guillotined 100%. So give me Pat Mix to look dominant in his UFC debut. Give me Pat Mix by submission. And Pat Mix by submission is probably going to be on the official betting article of the week. It was profitable again last week. We would have been on a beach somewhere if Billy Ray Goff wasn't who he is. But still profitable, and probably would have been a lot more if Aaron Blanchfield got an opportunity to compete. But if you want the official betting article as well as the DFS strategy guide, lineup optimizer, data model projections, all of that good stuff, you can find it on kunithmma.com. That's going to be linked in the description and in a pinned comment. Back to the breakdown. Next, we're looking at a banger of a welterweight fight. Vicente Luque fighting Kevin Holland this week. Powerful strikers on both sides, slick submission skills on both sides. I don't think this fight goes the distance. It's probably the best bet here. Vicente Luque, we've had some really good reads on him in recent years, really since starting the channel. Since we started making these videos, he's fought 5 times. We've been right about the outcome of Vicente Luque fights 5 times. He's only 2-3, so we've been doing pretty good. We know what we're looking at when it comes to Vicente. Picked him to beat Temba Garimbo, who was inexplicably favored to win that fight. That was crazy. We picked him to beat RDA as well. That was actually, I think, the last perfect card that we had, or second to last perfect card that we had. Shout out Cub Swanson and the robbery that we needed. We also picked Bilal to beat him by decision. We picked Neal and Buckley not only to beat him, but to be the first 2 guys to knock him out. That worked out really well for us. So if the trend holds, we're right there. We know what's happening. Now, Kevin Holland, pretty big favorite here. I think it's ugly. I don't trust Kevin Holland. I don't think any of you guys watching trust Kevin Holland from a betting standpoint. Super inconsistent, jumps from weight division to weight division, back and forth between the two, takes short notice fights, sometimes looks like a man on a mission, other times looks completely disinterested. I don't like breaking down Kevin Holland fights anymore for the channel, I'll be honest, because he's really unpredictable. But I will say the best version of Kevin Holland beats the current version of Vicente Luque. I think like 2021, 2022 Vicente Luque was as dangerous as it gets, but now 33 years old, had a lot of fights. I know Kevin Holland's had a lot of fights as well. And there's a lot of miles on Kevin Holland as well, but Vicente Luque, it just feels a little bit different. He's gone to war with guys who, I mean, when you look at their names on paper, Brian Barberena, he shouldn't be going to war with a guy like that, and he does. And to be a fan of MMA, you are a fan of Vicente Luque. That should go without saying, but I will say, I think he's in trouble here because of the size, the length, the hand speed, the punching power. I think all of that coming from the Holland side is going to give Luque all kinds of problems for however long the fight goes. Because Vicente Luque doesn't really move his head all that much. He's a bit slower. I think he could wrestle effectively here if he wanted to, but even then, it's not really plan A for him. I think that he's going to get stuck on the outside trying to point fight with Kevin Holland, and it's just not going to work very well. He doesn't move his head enough. I do like the kicking game from Vicente Luque. I like the calf kick. I like the body kick as well. I think he'll have success doing that, but the strikes to the head, that success is going to belong to Kevin Holland. I think that makes the difference. I think the taller, longer, faster athlete is going to separate himself when it comes to the striking. And I think that he finishes Vicente Luque. I think Vicente Luque had very bend but don't break durability for a long time. Jeff Neal cracked that chin. We saw him crumble under the pressure against Joaquin Buckley. I think that Kevin Holland is going to put a nail in that coffin. I think Holland knocks him out. So give me the Trailblazer to get it done. Give me the Trailblazer by KO. Speaking of KOs, Bruno Silva's fighting Joshua Van. Rest in peace. There's no other way around it. I think that's the toughest part about these pay-per-view cards. We talked about this a little bit earlier. On this card alone, we have 13 fights. right? 6 of these have favorites that are sitting at -450 or worse. Joe Pyfer at -375 as of right now looks like value. That's crazy. It's gross. It's gross. And if you took Joe Pyfer and these 6 fighters that are at terrible odds and you parlayed them all together, you would have plus 269 odds on a 7-leg parlay, especially with obvious landmines throughout. It's just gross. But anyway, Josh Van packs this man up, unfortunately, for Bruno Silva. Silva's coming off that bad knockout loss to Manel Kopp. He ended up coming from behind to beat Cody Durden, but was nearly knocked out himself in that fight. And Durden, as we saw, is not quite on Josh Van's level as far as the striking goes. And it doesn't help that Bruno Silva is 35 years old, middle of the pack, fighting at flyweight. That's not great. Josh Van gets it done here. Hips, hands, heart, works that body effectively. I think he closes Bruno Silva out, but I think he does it late. Josh Van's not a kind of one-punch knockout guy, but he's going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you, and I think late in this fight with a body shot, he's going to fold up the Brazilian. So give me Josh Van to win this fight by knockout. And speaking of knockouts, we got Azamat Murzakanov. He is knocking out everybody, it feels like. He's fighting Brendson Ribeiro this week. Is this one of those landmine spots? Well, the Russian's giving up some height. He's giving up a whole lot of length, and that line is very, very wide. I don't even know if he's the better athlete here. Brendson Ribeiro is probably a bit faster, a bit twitchier, but I think Azamat Murzakanov might just hit with a little bit too much thump. Now, his fights aren't looking perfect, but the results are damn near perfect, like against Dustin Jacoby. Rocks him early. Dustin Jacoby comes back and takes the last round off of him. Tafon Chukwi's beating him cleanly. 2-0 on the scorecards going into the third, and his coaches are like, yeah, maybe be more aggressive, maybe do more. Idiot. But outside of that, he's looked really nothing short of dominant. So I think that he ends up winning this week. I hate that it's just another favorite that you have to take, but I will say the angles that you got to take on these cards, look at these round lines, right? If they're sitting at under over 2.5, start taking some of these unders. I think this fight card is going to be full of finishes. I think we're going to have to be watching the Sean O'Malley, Kayla Harrison, Juliana Pena, promos way more than we want throughout the night, because a lot of these fights look poised to end pretty quickly. So give me Azamat Murzakanov to continue to do what he does. I think he knocks out Brendson Ribeiro. He's been knocked out by lesser fighters before. So Azamat Murzakanov by KO. Extremely torn on this one. On one side, you got Serghei Spivac, the grappler, right? Waldo Cortes-Acosta, the striker. I've been a little bit higher on Waldo than I think most people have, especially in that Robelis to Spain fight. But that's also a situation where you look back in hindsight and you're like, okay, like you were right about Robelis to Spain, Kunith, that's great, but we found out he's terrible, so there's not really that much, not much there. And for Serghei Spivac, I'm not feeling great about him because we picked him last time out as a massive underdog to beat Jailton Almeida. He had top position early while they were dry. When I tell you I was counting the money, obviously we should never do that. And it came back to bite me, of course, because everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. We saw him rush. He got impatient and then got reversed. And that was the beginning of the end. This guy's got no chin. Now on the other side, again, we've been high on Waldo in spots. Last time out, I thought there was value on Ryan Spann because the line looked a little too wide, and then Ryan Spann showed up looking like Uncle Phil, and it was just a mess all around. If this fight hits the mat, it's because it's on Serghei Spivac's terms, and he can make it look really easy this week. Now, if this fight stays standing, I think Salsa Boy's going to dance on him. So where are we? Well, the problem I have with Waldo Cortes-Acosta is that we haven't really seen him fight many guys that are going to be able to take him down. The only real grappler, and I don't even know if you'd call him a grappler, that we've seen him fight was Pizao, Marcos Rogerio de Lima. We picked against him in that fight. We picked Pizao. Pizao took him down a couple of times. He even got into like full mount at one point, but that was around 2 years ago. Waldo Cortes-Acosta's been a UFC fighter for a while now. He's picking up wins. He's beating everybody. Literally, he's beating everybody outside of Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He has had some favorable matchups, even if they didn't seem favorable in the moment. He's fought some old guys, guys on their way out of the promotion, guys that don't belong in the promotion, Robelis. Talking to you, Papa. And I feel like I'm being enticed to play Waldo Cortes-Acosta because we feel so starved for value on this card, and he's an underdog at reasonable odds, so he probably gets it done. But the thing about Serghei Spivac is he's not shooting takedowns like these other guys are shooting takedowns. He's getting takedowns that are very energy efficient, if you will, especially for big guys. Get into that clinch and working his trips, his throws, getting takedowns where he's landing in like side control and half guard and sometimes even full mount. And if he can do that against Waldo Cortes-Acosta, I think that he's going to win pretty easily. I'm going to take the polar bear to get it done here. He's a bit chinny, and I think Waldo has a better gas tank, but I don't think it's going to go that long. I think Serghei Spivac's going to end up winning this fight by submission, and we talked about this when he was fighting Marcin Tybura. We picked him to beat Marcin Tybura. I think he was around the same thing. It was like minus 120, minus 140, something like that. When he wins, he looks minus 800. You don't want to get your ass kicked, or at least feel like you did, by the betting line when you're like, I could have just played this guy, just ran through this guy. So he's going to be minus 150, minus 140 by the time you play it. He could end up looking like he should have been minus 600. So go out there, play you some Serghei Spivac by submission. This is a fun one, and one where I think a lot of people are going to get caught. I think a lot of people are going to get caught with their hands in the cookie jar this week. You have Khaos Williams, he's fighting Andreas Gustafsson this week. Gustafsson just cannot seem to get on a fight card. It's not his fault. Even Trevin Giles went to the Macy Barber school of pulling out of fights late. Kidding. But Andreas Gustafsson was supposed to fight last week, and now he gets to fight a week later. But I'm pretty sure Trevin Giles pulled out like as soon as they were all making weight. So this guy's got to make weight again a week later, and there's not a whole lot of fat to be cut there. Like, this guy's not going to be 100% come fight time. And this debut of his has gotten strung out for so long. I feel like people are dying to bet on Andreas Gustafsson this week. But again, I don't think he's going to be at 100%, and I also think that this is a nightmarish matchup for him, because you watch Gustafsson fight. If you catch highlights and stuff, you're like, oh, okay, like this guy's the man, because he gets into that clinch and he's nasty. Those elbows, those knees, those uppercuts that are in tight, those short little ones. Like, he generates a lot of power in a short amount of space, and he's a problem in there. If you get in that clinch, you're not gonna have a good time. Outside of that though, all forward, right? No defense, all offense, no footwork, just aggression. He's running into the pocket with his hands down here, just trying to close distance, trying to crash that void. You do that against a guy with this much power, you're gonna get your jaw spun, and I think that's what happens this week. I don't love Khaos Williams. I think he's pretty slow. He doesn't do a good job of throwing enough punches down the middle. He kind of wings punches, dips his head a lot, but when he lands, he can crack. And I think a guy like Andreas Gustafsson, who has no regard for defense or no regard for what's coming back his way, and it's worked against almost everybody, he's never seen this kind of power. So I think he walks onto something pretty heavy here. I think Williams intercepts him on his way in, and I think it happens really early, like in the first 60 to 90 seconds of the fight. And going back to the preparation, not only is Andreas Gustafsson cutting weight again, right, not going to be 100%, but Khaos Williams has been looking at this date for weeks now. He's had a full training camp. This is the third opponent that he's had scheduled for this date. It doesn't really matter though, because he knew I am fighting on June 7th. So I expect him to be in a really good place physically. I think this is the kind of opponent that plays right into his game, and I think he's going to look good this week. So give me the bounce back spot for Khaos Williams to spoil the debut. I think Williams wins by knockout. Just another nasty betting line with Andrea Lipski fighting Tong Wang. We've seen Andrea Lipski fall to lesser opponents in the past. I think Tong Wang's going to make it look easy this week. We saw her sweep Bruno Brazil on the scorecards. The Gabby Fernandez fight, I think it was kind of a fluky outcome. Realistically, I think Tong Wang didn't really show her any kind of respect and ended up getting put in a pretty bad spot against a big physical opponent. And I don't think that Andrea Lipski is as big, as physical. She loses quite a bit. I think that she's going to get touched up here. If they go to the mat, her jiu-jitsu skills are probably a bit better than Wang's, but I'm not really too worried about it. I think she's going to get pieced up on the feet for 3 rounds. I don't think she gets knocked out here, but this is the kind of fight that you just stay away from entirely. No point. But give me Wang Tong to win this fight. I think she ends up winning by decision. Next, we have the UFC debut of JooSang. He's fighting Jekka Serghei this week. Made slight mention to it earlier that there are some landmines on this card because these odds are ugly. You can't just parlay all of the favorites because somebody's going to burn you. Look at Billy Ray Goff last week. What are you doing? The landmines on this card are going to be early in the card, right? So you're going to be rebuilding as you go through, because I think 1 to 2 of the first 3 fighters who are pretty big favorites are going to drop the ball this week. You have you, who's a massive favorite, but I feel like it's completely unjustified. I feel like it's more a line against Serghei than it is for you, because Serghei lost to Anshul Jubilee, which is inexcusable, I know. Lost to Weston Wilson. We picked Weston Wilson to beat him that night, and Weston Wilson, not very good. We know that. Tricky on the mat, but not very good. Giving up a lot of strength in the UFC, it seems. But let's be honest. We don't really know anything about JooSang. He hasn't really fought anybody. He's not a massive guy for the division. It's not like he's putting people out left and right. You look at his most recent fights, Last 5 out of the last 7 or something like that, or 4 out of the last 6 have gone the distance. And these are against guys like one guy's 25 and 26, and that's not his age, that's his record. 25 and 26. Goes the distance with that guy. Goes the distance with a 37-year-old who was 71 fights into his professional career. Went the distance with a 35-year-old Brazilian man who was in his retirement fight. But you see some of the videos that you could find on YouTube, and it's like, okay, like he's solid, I guess, but it's not like he's fighting anybody. And if he goes out there and wins, that's fine. Jekka Serghei is not that dude at all. But what Jekka Serghei does well, because he doesn't really do many things well, but what he does do well is that he can crack. We've seen him put guys out cold. And one thing that gives me pause for you coming out of South Korea, we've seen this with Korean fighters before, Zombie, Ho Choi, recently Ji Young Lee. Offensively, these guys are very sharp, very technical. Defensively, head doesn't move an inch. Chin isn't tucked all that often. They end up getting into wars as a result. Jekka Serghei, you let him land cleanly, you're not going to live to tell the tale. He's going to make you pay for standing and banging with him damn near every time. I know you're not going to like it, or at least some of you aren't going to like it, but I'm going to go with the underdog here at plus 300 or plus 300 or worse. I know whenever it starts to get like that, people in the comments are like, oh, no way, no way. But I think to throw you in your parlays without realistically, have you ever seen him fight like live? I feel like you haven't, so you kind of deserve to get burned, low key, but it could teach you a lesson, who knows. But I'm going to go with the dog here. I like the power, and I'm going to go with the guy who at least know what I'm getting out of it. So give me Jekka Serghei. Take a small shot on him by knockout. Fun one at lightweight. You've got Quillen Salkeld coming off of the best possible debut you can ask for against Yanal Ajmos, who picked up a nice win last time out against Trevor Peek. Salkeld knocking out Anshul Jubli in the first couple of seconds of the fight. Maybe the ref jumped in a little bit prematurely, but I think that's okay. And again, Yanal Ajmos bouncing back because he did lose to Chris Duncan. A lot of us remember that he lost to Chris Duncan. He was swinging for the fences, didn't look that good, got taken down, although not held down really. But a lot of people don't realize or don't remember that he broke his arm in the first round. So I don't know if you can really hold that against him, and Chris Duncan's looked pretty damn good, so I don't know. I did like the offensive wrestling coming from Ajmos, though, in his last fight against Trevor Peek. Took him down 9 times. Not a lot of control, but a lot of rematting there, which you like to see, although Trevor Peek is still very, very raw, very green. But it's good to see an explosive striker like Ajmos kind of put the pieces together and look a bit more well-rounded. On the other side, Quillen Salkeld, more experience, much bigger, much longer, and I think that he is going to be able to come out here and work some of his wrestling of his own. We saw him do that in Contender Series against Gage Young, took him down 9 times. Same deal, not a whole lot of control, but still was getting the fighter to the mat. He's knocked guys out early in these fights as well. My thing is this, we saw Chris Duncan get to his hips pretty quickly, and his, I mean Ajmo, able to get him down to the mat pretty quickly as well, and he wasn't able to get a hook in, but I think that taller, longer frame coming from Quillen Salkeld is going to be able to get a hook in, and I think he gets to Yanal Ajmos' back more than once here. Ajmos is smaller, he's very compact, he's very strong. I think it's going to be hard to take him down like in the middle of the octagon, but I think that length and that creativity coming from Salkeld is going to be able to help him get him up against the fence and then just drag him or break him down to the mat, and that's where he's going to have a lot of success. At striking range, I think Ajmos kind of swings for the fence and could get counter struck here. That right hand coming from Salkeld is pretty sharp, so I think he could find a home for that as well, but I think that Quillen Salkeld rightfully is the favorite here. The line's a bit wide, but I do think that he gets it done. More ways to win, more physical advantages. I think that he finds a way to get the victory. I think he ends up winning by decision. And lastly, Marquel Medeiros fighting Mark the Shark Chowinski. Mark Chowinski is full-blown Jamaican if you didn't know. And real quick, if you haven't, like the video, last chance. I don't want to have to keep asking you to do this. Marquel Medeiros, pretty big favorite here. I don't like it one bit. He was supposed to fight last week, ends up pulling out of the fight. He's going to fight again. I don't love that at all. Mark Chowinski making his UFC debut. That's not always great, right? Debutantes get that nervous energy, right? You could come in and not perform your best. My thing is this, he doesn't have the most dangerous guy in front of him. We haven't seen Marquel Medeiros land a whole lot of strikes of consequence so far. Pre-UFC, yes, but in the UFC, he's not lighting guys up. He's also not throwing a ton. We've seen him taken down before. Mark Chowinski's got pretty good grappling. You go back and you watch some of his fights, he keeps his foot on the gas, changes levels at good times. He's got very good timing with those takedown attempts. Undefeated for a reason. Like, the guy's been giving people hell. And Marquel Madero, some people thought that he probably should have lost that fight against Austin Hubbard. I thought that he should have won. I thought he did just a little bit more. But that fight could have went either way, and I don't think you could really be too upset about it. I think Chowinski does a lot of the same things that Hubbard's going to do, but with a bit more urgency. I think he lands a bit harder, and I think there's more of a threat when he takes you down for him to submit you. He fights out of Rufus Sport, so you know he's getting quality coaching, he's getting quality attention, he's got good training partners, UFC guys that he's exposed to, and it's not like he's a 22-year-old kid that's getting a short notice call. Like, this guy's 29 years old. He's been doing that. I think Mark Chowinski, who I believe was preparing for a fight either this week or close to the date, so I think he's going to come in physically in a pretty good place. I think he ends up getting it done this week, making good on his UFC debut. Give me Mark the Shark to win this fight. I think he actually ends up winning by submission. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. I will see you later in the week for the DFS video for final picks. Let's go.